Hi, my name is Austin Morgan. So back in 2014, I suffered from a traumatic brain injury. I was a avid motocross racer. So I when I was 5 years old, I started racing and I just absolutely loved it. Um, so fast forward to when I was 18. Um, so that summer, which was between the summer of high school graduation and when I was supposed to start college at University of Texas at Austin, I went out to go train. So put all my gear on, helmet, neck brace, chest protector, lead brace, the whole 9 yards. I went out. About halfway through the track, a guy had crashed, and I think he ended up breaking his pelvis. And so since he didn't crash, typical motocross protocols are the flaggers start on each jump, start waving the yellow flag people off the course. All the spectators were running to go and help the guy who had crashed. So no one saw my injury. My injury happened about three-quarters of the way through the track. Um, okay, I lied. There was actually one person who saw my injury, and that person was a 7-year-old little girl. My mom, the only person who was out riding with me, um, came up to her and asked her what had happened, and she said, and I quote, "The bike ate me." So, anyways, my mom ran up to me. Luckily, I was the most unlucky person, I guess. But luckily, there was an off-duty paramedic who was riding that day that had already stopped and was helping me. Since the guy had crashed, they called an ambulance. So by the time I wrecked, the ambulance was there, so they were able to intubate me right away. But when my mom ran up to me before the ambulance or before they were able to get me in the ambulance, um, so my mom's a nurse, so she's seen everything, and she freaked out. She saw me and she's like, what messed my mind was that one eye was constricted and one eye was dilated. She's like, I knew that was a traumatic brain injury. So, anyways, the ambulance intubated me, and then they called the helicopter and flew me off to Brackenridge back when it was still up and running. They immediately put me under a medically induced coma, and both my parents and then like all my friends, family, all came and swarmed around the area. Like it was like their waiting room had too many people in it. Anyways, so the doctors told my parents, so like we don't think he's going to live. Um, so while I was in this medically induced coma, on the seventh day, I started twitching my hands. My mom freaked out. She rushed to the doctor, asked what happened. The doctor, with all his schooling, training, and excellence, his answer was a simple shoulder shrug. So they decided to wake me up, and my journey began. So while at the hospital, they did an X-ray of me, and I ended up having a broken back, collarbone, eye orbital, and hand. Um, and then I had a hemorrhage on my central sulcus. So the posterior side affects your motor movement. So now I have spasticity. So spasticity, in simple terms, is the constant contraction of your muscles. So whole right side got affected. I go and punch, like the bicep like locks up. So all my flexor muscles locked up. Um, And then the posterior side affects your somatosensory cortex. So that's in essence, your ability to feel, you know, uh, feel with your fingers. You can feel the temperature, everything else. So, like, in essence, my right side is always colder than my left side. If I went and felt this desk, my eyes closed, I can give you more details in my left hand than I could in my right hand. And I had 6 other brain bleeds. But so after they woke me up, I spent 3 more days, and they moved me to the intermediate care room for another 2.5 weeks, and then they transferred me over to St. David's, Maine. Um, Best way I can explain the injury without ending up spending hours and hours and hours talking about this, but I hit the reset button on my life. Couldn't walk, couldn't talk, couldn't eat, couldn't even wipe my own butt. Um, I was back down to where I was 0 years old. So at St. David's, they had occupational therapists, a physical therapist, and 2 speech therapists. Physical therapist worked on my walking. Occupational therapist worked on my fine motor skills, and then 2 speech therapists. So 1 speech therapist worked on my ability to speak right now, which I think she did an awesome job because I'm doing an awesome job speaking. Ignore that. Anyways, and then my second speech therapist worked on my epiglottis. So essentially that. Oh, sorry, esophagus. So essentially that the thing that divides your neck between air going into your lungs and food going into your stomach. They were worried that food would go down in my lungs, and of course that would never be good. Um, Anyways, so I spent 3 months at St. David's, Maine. Um, they recovered me greatly, and then I was finally healthy enough. I was too healthy to stay there, so I got moved to a post-acute rehab center in Dripping Springs. Stayed there for 3 months. It's kind of the same thing. They worked on my physical, occupational, and speech therapist, but also so I during this whole process I had double vision. So like if I were just sitting looking at you right now, like one eye would be see your face perfectly, and the other eye would be kind of aimed at your stomach area, a little to the right. Um, and so the vision therapist there actually worked on correcting my vision, and she finally got it to where it's corrected now. It's not 100%. I will dive more into that later on. But anyway, so after that, after 3 months there, I went back home, and I had outpatient therapy from January to the start of college in August. So the whole time I was just healing, getting better, and then I went to school at University of Texas at Austin. Started off with only taking 6 hours the first 2 semesters, and then I just slowly got added more hours to my schedule. I actually because I remember when I went back home, there was I remember like after I got back home from my Pushki Rehab Center, I was looking up like how to heal myself, how to get better. I was tired of this thing. Almost like a year of recovery, and I still wasn't anywhere near normal. And so I was looking up everywhere, and like I couldn't find anything. Zip, do or da. And I was like, well, I want to make that difference. And so when I went to UT, I tried to switch my major from biology to neuroscience. I finally switched my major over to that, and then I was, and then actually, so through the process, I, how did I get? So um, yeah, that's right. So one of my professors told me I should go to take the Bridging Disciplines program, which I did, and I got into that, and I have 18, I think 18 different tracks you can take, and I chose the social entrepreneur and nonprofit track, and that has opened up my doors completely. So I went to I met up with Rhonda, who I'm sure you will meet or have met already, who's in charge of Team Luco for Mines. Her, and then I ended up interning for them for a semester, and then I even now I did their uh, podcast. I reached out and actually started visiting patients in the hospital and outside the hospital. And I was trying to make a big difference. And then through them, I met up with Ali, who's in charge of Austin Neuro Connections. And I met up and, I did the same thing there, meeting the patients and making connections. It was a new organization. So I started, kind of start from the ground up. Anyways, and then through them, I actually met up with uh, Texas Brain Injury Advisory Council, and now I'm part of the TBIAC um, under the Education Committee, and I'm just I've actually and so I'm just listening to different stuff. But like right now, then I got um, into contact with my uncle who is from Canada. That whole family is big football players. Well, they came down to play football one year, and they had these half, basically half necklaces. And I was like, ask them about it, and they're like, it's actually supposed to prevent brain injuries. I was like, what? And so it's called the Q collar. Basically, this Q collar puts slight pressure on your neck and um, allows more blood up in your head. That way, it's more of a cushion for your brain to hit instead of hitting the skull directly. And so I am now trying to. It's so they're from Canada, so it's allowed in Canada. It's not FDA approved here in the States yet, but I'm trying to work on that process. And then I was trying to start up my own business, meeting with patients and kind of being their coach in a sense and making a big difference in their lives. Well, the COVID hit. I had already met up with about a dozen different patients. I had 3 patients lined up for my last spring break. And then the COVID hit and it just went, it got shut down. Um, so I was like, well, I still need to help people reach out to people. So I decided to start my own blog. It's not up yet. It's still in the working progress, but it's getting traction, whatever else. And then actually through the TBIAC, I went to their conference, and several people there were. I told them about my blog, and they're like, "Yeah, whenever it's done, like email me, whatever else, and we'll post it up on our sites." And this is like a state or um, nationwide conference, so there's people in like Maryland, um, Alaska, everywhere. So I'm in the process of that. So sum all that up, I feel like I'm just rambling on now. But anyway, sum it up. I want to make a difference in patients. Yeah, I want to make a difference in patients' lives who have suffered through a traumatic brain injury, or really just an acquired brain injury, and uh, so make a difference in the lives, whether it be meet with them, posting podcasts, or writing blogs, maybe make a YouTube channel. I just, any way possible, I want to make a difference in their lives, because in their lives, like after the injury, I've realized it's like a double-edged sword. Like, you have an injury that you have a very hard time describing, because it's almost like you can't experience it until you have it. And so, like, I wouldn't have never been able to explain any of the deficits I've had um, to anyone. Well, I've gotten to where I can really kind of explain it to them, down to like an elementary school level, they still may not fully get it, but they can grasp the concept around it, kind of can get like traction in their heads or whatever. But it's very difficult to explain, and essentially, like I want to make that world kind of an easier place, explain it to the other people better, make an impact on their lives. That way they can kind of get traction going, move forward. For example, I after I left the hospital, I had follow ups with my neurologist, and I would come there with like a sheet of paper just stacked with questions. We'd talk, and I mean, he was an excellent. He was actually about to retire. Like he'd been doing this for years, and anyway, some of the questions I had for him, he answered most of them very well, very thoroughly. But some of the questions I had, he was like, I honestly, I don't know how to explain that or say that. Like, I've never had it before. I don't know what it feels like or what it's like or whatever else. And so, essentially, that kind of, I want to draw a bridge between patients and their caretakers, loved ones, or just other people. That way, it's an easier way to explain. I'm just going on. Anyways, but yeah. So I'm Austin Morgan. I'm here to make a big difference in patients with traumatic brain injuries lives. Thank you.